Hey guys, I'm Justin Ross from Monkey Row Media. Welcome to another episode of Media Makers and Shakers. I have the great privilege of being with Zack, Even Esh today, of places like Underground Strength, Strong Life Podcast, and a million other things apparently. So,
what's
Zack,
up?
nice to just got submitted. Zack, thanks for allowing us to be here today.
Thanks for coming.
This is a pretty intense gym.
Yeah.
I feel the intensity here.
Yes.
Bring me into what goes on down here.
So this location actually opened up by accident. So I moved to this town, Manasquan, about 8 years ago, and the first location started out of my parents' garage, which was very small. I mean, crammed into a corner. I picked up some cheap stuff. This is like before eBay was out. I was picking up stuff on classified ads. You know, the story I tell people is I got tired of traveling to gyms. I wanted atmosphere so bad. I mean, since I was in high school. And I got super busy between teaching full-time, coaching wrestling. I was finishing up grad school, and they even had me as an adjunct professor at a county college. And I couldn't commute to the gym I wanted to, which was about 30 minutes away. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna just train in my garage. So I contact the person, and he says, yep, come up. We've got stuff in a storage container. So I stored like money in like socks, underwear, each pocket, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna go and buy some equipment. If I'm like a shady area and something does happen, they might only get a little bit of the money. So long story short, they've got stuff in like a storage container, and I think I picked up basically like a flat utility bench, a pair of 50 and 100-pound dumbbells. I think I got like it was like an old school adjustable bench by a guy named John Perillo Performance. Bodybuilders from the 80s and 90s would know this guy. So I got that stuff. I get into my parents' garage, which is smaller than like, you know, a little bedroom. Not only that, it was freezing in there, and there were no windows, so I always had to open the garage. And I trained 2 guys to start. The stuff we were doing, I looked at kind of 2 things. My influences were like the bodybuilders of the 70s, the 60s, the golden era. So those guys were doing deadlifts, bent over row, clean and press, heavy lifting. And I remembered like early days World's Strongest Man, which those bodybuilders would compete in. Lou Ferrigno, Franco Colombo, they would carry kegs and refrigerators. So I would train the guys in the garage, then I would take them in the backyard. They would carry stones, I had a tree that we cut down, we chopped it into logs. I had them carrying logs. It was like a mix of Rocky, 4, World's Strongest Man 1980s, and Pumping Iron of the 70s. And I blended that stuff together. I was not looking the part of a typical trainer. You know, those guys were like collared shirts, you know, shirts tucked in, and I was like, you know, training guys with stones and tree logs. And I learned that, you know, 2 most important things are crucial. I learned it from teaching, and I learned it in that moment. Was like, number 1, you just got to genuinely care about the kids. You know, if you don't care about these kids, you're just not going to find a way to figure out how to improve your own methods, your own training, and everything. And training to me is everything. It's not just the technique of the movement. And then number 2 is you got to get results. You just can't fake it. And from those 2 lessons I learned, I simply would take that and consistently share those results. So when I started training the guys out of my first house, for 1 year I trained them in the garage, the backyard, and down the street at a local playground. But what I would do is the internet was kind of coming into play. So I had a big digital camera. It was about the size of a brick. So I could take like 5 photos. I didn't know how to like lower the resolution. And I would, this is before like blogs were out, I learned how to build my own website. And I would take those photos and put them into the website and write an article about it. And I would share it on like newspaper sport forums. I would write for any newspaper, any wrestling newspaper. A kid had emailed me from somewhere over in like the UK and said, hey, you should do an interview with this website. It was like a shoot fighting website, which was the precursor to, you know, MMA. Back then they called it no holds barred. Shoot fighting was, you know, started I think in like Japan. They interviewed me, and people started sending me questions. And what it showed me was I got to pay attention to what people are talking about, asking about. what makes them get excited. So people started asking me, how to put together equipment, how to train wrestlers and combat athletes. So I started writing articles about that stuff. And then I came across somebody online, Ryan Lee, who's teaching people, how to take your information, if you're a local trainer, and now impact the world. And what I learned was that when I looked at kind of my appearance and the training I was doing compared to what looked like professionals, people who had their own studios with beautiful equipment, they looked great, but I said, I'm going to make up for it by taking a shit ton of action, by being an action taker,
being everywhere,
and showcasing our results. And people started traveling to my house from, within 5-10 minutes to an hour away. Okay. They found out through like a wrestling newspaper. I would visit wrestling clubs, train them, and then I would like sell them like a book I made from like Kinko's. Like the photos, I'd put together workouts, I'd go to Kinko's, I'd print it out, it'd be like 20 pages, put in a 3-ring binder, I'd train people, and then I'd be like in the back of the room selling like the binder for $20.
The first ebook.
Yeah, first the ebook, actual book. And
That's
I'd be at Kinko's like 2 a.m. the night before that I had to do this, and the parents were buying it. People were like starving for the information. I was always moving before I was fully ready. So even before I was ready for the gym, I was always looking for garages and warehouses.
One step ahead.
I built my website. I was building a newsletter. I had articles. I was writing for like, martial arts magazines, MMA magazines, men's fitness. I had written for like all these magazines without even having a gym, because I knew that I didn't understand like the fancy marketing I saw other people doing, right, but I did understand that people were just going to look at my results. So I always posted before and after photos. Anytime a parent sent me an email, I would take a screenshot. And basically my website was like a whole list of success stories. So when it was time to make the move, I had this following. And I think that was like, Facebook wasn't out when I got my first gym. I was on MySpace.
There you go.
So like people were finding out through different forms of media, which I still use today. Like I don't solely utilize the web. I still try to write for the newspapers and the magazines, and I never allow myself to say, you're above that, you're too good for that, you shouldn't be writing for this newspaper or website, because you don't know
absolutely
who's reading it, who's contacting you, or what kind of people decide to consume what kind of media,
It's just about, spreading your reach as much as you can, being kind of everywhere, establishing that groundwork, which it sounds like you did, humble beginnings for sure.
Yes.
And then from that point, just kind of establishing that expertise, being everywhere. And then it's great that you kind of early on saw the importance of social proof and telling your story, right?
Yeah,
so
I just listened.
You've had all these success stories.
Yep.
You're training all these animal kids.
Yep.
You got your own Spartan team.
Yeah.
And so you've got this solid foundation. You're making the transition to a facility, and then that's when you kind of spread your reach even more. So from the point where you're doing kind of the guerrilla marketing, which I think still has its place.
I still do it.
And honestly, I think it still has its place in certain areas. Some stuff is just kind of timeless.
That's right.
Building relationships and referrals and things like that, and just kind of being everywhere and going to schools, especially if you're dealing with athletes.
Yep.
But what motivated you at that point? So now the internet's in full bloom.
Yes.
And social media is upon us, and video is everywhere. So in terms of content, when did you really take it to the next step and implementing, things like video? I know you're very heavy in blogs.
Right.
You eventually started a podcast. What motivated you to take it to that next step?
So that first, when I transitioned into the warehouse, that was, I think, kind of like the beginning of Facebook and the beginning of YouTube. It was like 06, 07. It was starting to come up. I wasn't like, daily videos, but I remember just in my mind, this kind of rule I had was you have to do one thing every day to move forward. It might be you have to send an email to a coach or a parent. You post an article. It could be as simple as just picking up a phone, which could take, making a phone call, and taking 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So now people have kind of these many ways that they could contact us, right? We got email, Instagram Messenger, they say, is like the new email. Facebook Messenger, they could hit you up on Twitter. Back in the day, if I wanted to contact somebody or be in touch with them, it was always like, okay, you have to pay me to be part of my private forum. And you couldn't reach out to coaches even. I was paying to be to even connect with them. Things that now we could they have you. Now it's more of a lot of free stuff. The one thing I did do was I used to have a phone, and I would check that phone every day before coming in, check the voicemails. And what I found was that the people that called were not a good fit, meaning they were asking me all the questions that were on the gym website, but they didn't want to take time to read or watch the video. They wanted me to hand them the information. And I always say, pay attention, success leaves clues. Pay attention to the details of how people find out about you, who is a good fit, why they're a good fit. Those people would always be like, okay, so how do I schedule, or how much does it cost? Da, da, da. And what happens is, I was like, before somebody gets to this gym, I need them on a scale 1 to 10, 8, 9, 10, ready to go. If they're not reading that website and they're calling me, asking me questions that they could, invest some energy and time to read, then that means they don't want to be here. Yeah. So I cut the phone to give at least a little bit of, tape before you get in here. Okay. You gotta show me that you're gonna invest a little bit of energy, because I always tell people, I go, you may not, people look at it like, oh, I'm paying money, but you pay in many ways. You pay with energy, time, the dedication, the discipline in and out of the gym. So I got rid of that phone, and now the only way you could really get into the gym is you've got to read the website, you've got to see the video of what we're about, and then you got to sign up for a trial. And even the website says, do not sign up if you're thinking about it or it's not convenient. I want people with urgency. So I've learned to really niche down not just the sports that we train, but the personality trait of the people that we work with.
Okay. So let's talk about internal, your gym community, which we know is extremely important.
Yep.
The relationships you build with the athletes you work with.
Yeah.
It's going to speak volumes of your business, what you stand for. It also helps with spreading the reach and referrals and just kind of spreading it out. How have you effectively used video content, what you put out there, to capture the community, all the action, what's actually happening here?
So my rule is, if I'm here, I got to get at least one video or at least one photo. Also, at the other locations, I try to encourage the other coaches to do that. I go, guys, even if it's at the end of a workout, snap me a group shot. Or tell the kid when he's at the top of a push-up, just get me one picture. Does it always happen? No. But I will, if it's a group that's been with me for a while, I could hold that camera. I could hold my phone, but if it's a newer group, I got to be hands-on coaching them. So what I like to do is just stockpile footage, but varied footage. Okay. I'm going to tell you why varied footage. Let's say they only just see kids lifting heavy weights. Well, parents, they might be like, well, that's bad for the back, and that's not healthy, right? Everybody has read maybe the wrong article or heard the wrong, even I've had doctors say shit to me do high reps and you'll get ripped. That's what they tell me, a doctor, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'll say, okay, I need to get video footage of them utilizing kettlebells, doing proper technique on a squat and a bench press, and they hear me coaching it. People are all hyped up on speed training. Speed training doesn't necessarily mean I'm jumping hurdles, but I do know that's what they think it means. Sure. So I make sure I catch video footage of them sprinting sleds, hurdles, jumping. Speed training, if we're talking technicality, speed training could be using a very light bar or very light dumbbell, 30 to 50%, and being explosive. But for a person who doesn't know, they don't think that's speed training. They look at it as strength, and my kid will never get fast. So I utilize all the things in the gym to capture photos, and I make sure or video as well, videos of the youth. Why videos of the youth, kids? Because what do people say? When's too young? And then I could pull so many videos and say, here we have, ton of 10 and 11-year-olds, 6th graders here. That's when
proof.
Yeah, so here's the proof. Look at this technique. And then other things that I'll do is if a kid is, sharing a story with me, and I'll be like, hey, Justin, I want to catch that on video at the end of this. And that might go on YouTube, or it'll just be now Instagram as a minute video. I think when Instagram started was a 15-second video.
It was 15-second quick bursts, and now it's a minute, and now they've implemented live stories.
The
and all this
stories,
other stuff.
yes.
So you're effectively capturing kind of member spotlight, client testimonial type of things.
All
when
different
you hear these
things.
stories, you want to get it out there.
I could say, hey, hey, Michael, I could say, hey, we're the best, I'm the best. But it always works better when your own members say,
absolutely,
you're the best, like that guy's the best. Same thing with parents. Sometimes they'll text message me, email me, I'll screenshot that and share it. And when I said earlier, I said you want to pay attention to how and when people learn from you. Couple months ago, not very long ago, 2-3 months ago, I posted a video saying that I'm looking for interns, and it was like crickets. So then I just actually typed it up on my notes and took a screenshot, and I can't even tell you how many emails I got. Too many emails. And what that showed me was people won't even watch a minute video, but they're gonna see the photo. So what I'm paying attention to is people just don't want to invest a minute of their own time. So you got to use all different kinds of media, and I'm better on video. But you want to know how I learned to take cool pictures? This is a crazy story. Is my earliest education came from Arnold Schwarzenegger's books. Right. And if you look at his Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, the photos just give you goosebumps. The guy who, I forget the name of the photographer, he would capture, he would take a photo that would just tell you a story. You would look at that photo and you would want to go to the gym. And so when I take photos, I try to capture a story that comes from it. And to me, I look at those old things. So I think it's super important, for coaches, if they want to spread their message, it's not just randomly post stuff. It's got to inspire and motivate. It has to educate as well, because now the age range of people, the demographics of people on Facebook and Instagram, which were once teenagers, I think the biggest growing demographic on Facebook is something late 30s to the mid 50s. So it's and same thing, Instagram is growing like that. So I take a look at how can all of this media, whether it's photo, video, and different types of video, meaning am I interviewing the person or am I showcasing them having fun, right? That's important, because people, you were saying, hey, this place is intimidating. Well, I want them to see these kids are having fun and that they love the hard work. And I don't want people thinking hard work is some grind and it's a punishment. And I know how powerful the messages are from social media, that one photo or video could change their whole perception
100%.
Of what we do,
Zack, last question.
Yeah.
What would you say, so you're big on storytelling, it's helped you grow your business.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best story to come out of Underground Strength?
So I don't know if there's a best story.
Okay.
There's so many.
Your favorite story?
Yeah, I'd say one of my favorite stories is one of the athletes that we worked with. He was the first kid that showed up that was a true underdog. He had never won a wrestling match. There was a lot of kids from his school that were training with us. Probably at the time we had probably about 50 members, and probably close to half were from his school. He showed up 20 pounds underweight of his weight class, never wins a match, but his dad and his family supported him in our system, which is train at least 3 days a week. We have a basic outline of how to eat. We were teamed up with a wrestling club. He was 0-15. Then his next year he was 15-1.
Beautiful.
And it was to me, it was you do all the right things. So we've had stories of celebrity people in the gym, and that stuff seems cool. But to me, I think the coolest stuff is what the kids do. And I'll give you one more story. So another story was when I taught, the first group of kids were in this 3rd grade group. And this one kid was the slowest, tagged first in every game, most out of shape, you didn't think that kid was going to be any sort of star athlete. Then I transferred to the middle school. I taught him for 3 years. Then I taught him when he was in middle school. And then that's when I opened in the 2-car garage. He started training with me. And he had taken on to calisthenics and lifting in school. And he became one of the most dominant lifters and football players we ever saw. I mean, this kid was 245. He used to be like Chubba Wubba, and we called him Curls because he had these long curls. And back then, Joe DeFranco would hold his world's strongest athlete. And we showed up as these guys who trained out of a garage. And I think I'd opened my gym for 2 weeks. So we had been training out of the garage. And I remember they see the NFL guys were there, and they see Curls flip the tire. And they go, they asked him like what college he's in. He's like, I haven't even gotten to college. And he beat the guys in the NFL tire flip time. He went to Johns Hopkins and was just a great kid. So to me, it was not what he just achieved with like athletics, was just like as a human. He was he did all the things of all the training. He trained when he wasn't with us. He played basketball for his speed and agility work. We said, hey, this is how you got to eat. That's what he did. He ate, he followed through. So whenever we showed a kid like, hey, this is what it takes and this is what you can become, you can't tell me you were worse than this kid because he never won a match. You can't tell me you were worse than this kid because he got tagged first in every game. But they did what we said. They followed through. So those stories to me are always better than celebrities who visit the gym, come to the gym, want to film at the gym, because to me that's not like the normal. Like to me, I'm more connected to like a real human, somebody who just wants to do the work but doesn't have the natural talent.
Sure.
Those are the best stories.
Love that. Very inspiring. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, brother. Thanks.